Welcome to a special edition of Gethsemane. I'm excited because my father is in the house. I'm so excited on today. I know you'll be blessed. Hey, listen, I want you to hit that like button, that share button. Let's get this message out to all four corners of the world. Also, we're so thankful for all of our supporters. You don't just watch, you support this ministry by your donation, by your gift, and your love offering. You can also hit that link below and you can be able to be a participant and a partner with us. It is because of your giving that allows us to continue ministries and platforms like this so that we can continue to get the gospel and the message out. We'll open up with a word of prayer and then we'll begin our special edition on today. Father, we thank you for your love, your care, and your blessings. Be with us, dear Father, not only in our discussion, be with us, dear Father, as we strive to be what you've called us to be each and every day. In your wonderful and blessed name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Blessed. For those of you who are faithful to our program, you know at this particular time I would read a question from our one of our subscribers. But today is a special edition because not only is my father in the house, but my preacher is in the house and my friend is in the house. And so I'm so excited to have this discussion and hopefully it will be a blessing unto you. My father has recently written a book called How to Develop Boys to Men. And so we're going to have a discussion over just the state of families today, the state of young men, the state of our boys today, and some of the things that's going on in our community. So I want to kind of begin. I want to ask you, when you were growing up, what was the state of families when you were growing up? Like when you saw the men in your community, your father, my grandfather, like what the impact of your visual growing up, like what was that like?
Well, growing up, early on, my father was your grandfather was involved in gambling. He had a problem with it. He was a waterfront gambler. And so the first 6 or 7 years he was in and out of the house. So I was kind of without him. And I would look around and the men that I saw, the ones that I admired, were the ones that kind of carried themselves in a certain way. They dressed a certain way. The others that I saw were men that I decided I don't want to be like, because they basically were on the corner. You could see about 5 or 6 of them on any corner, right? And they would just sit there all day long, and so that was kind of the image I had. I had the kind of men that I wanted to be like, and I had that image of those that I didn't want to be like.
So in your neighborhood in 5th Ward and growing up, you had models. What made you choose which route you wanted to go?
Well, I had an epiphany at probably 6, maybe 7 years old. In 5th Ward, we would roll our tires. You know, we didn't have the toys you got out of Toys R Us. We made our tires, our toys, and so we had this tire that we would roll down the sidewalks. And I was rolling my tire down the sidewalk one day, and I remember pulling over to the side of this old white paint peeling off of it house, and I said to myself, I said, this is hard. I'm not supposed to be out here all by myself. Somebody's supposed to be with me. And at that particular point in my life, I said, I'm not gonna do my children like this. I'm not gonna have my children out here by themselves. I made the epiphany or had the statement within myself to say, I'm going to be the man that I admired. I'm going to be that man that's with their children and not the one that's sitting on the corner not doing anything.
How old were you?
I was 6 or 7 years old when I came to that decision.
So you were 6 or 7 years old and you were saying, it's not supposed to be this difficult.
It's not supposed to be like this.
I'm supposed to have some help.
I was hungry.
Yeah.
And I didn't have clothes. You know, they would be giving my family clothes, and I had to wear other folks' clothes. And I thought about all the things that was going on at 6 or 7 years old, and I said to myself, it's got to be different. Something's supposed to be different than this.
Right.
And I remember seeing men that were dressed nice and their family sitting with them, and I said that's what I want.
So you would see, like, you would go to worship.
Yeah,
and
that's where I would see it in church. I would see it at church.
So how much did church have an impact, like when you came in, and at that time Grandpa wasn't doing right?
Well, I had a faithful mother.
Yeah.
And you know, it was 8 of us. Yeah. Eventually, and she, man, we would go to church and she'd have us sitting all on the same row. We had our own row. Right. And that's when I would be able to see men acting like men, and that really impressed me. It was in the church that I saw those men that were basically around their families and walking and talking with dignity, and that really impressed me.
That's important for you to say that, because I think sometimes there are young boys that don't have a model. Right. And sometimes by coming to worship or coming into the Lord's house and being amongst the church, you get to see, they get exposed to other models and other types of men that may not be in their own home. And sometimes that even gives hope, you know. Yeah.
Now remember, I was brought up around, you know, it was like the 60s and the 70s, so, you know, when pimps were pimps. Okay. You know?
Okay. Real pimps. Yeah, the real pimps.
You know, I mean, they do movies on them. They write. I saw them.
Yeah, yeah.
You know? And so I had that image. I had the image of the this is the man over here.
So you saw on the corner, you saw the Cadillac.
Yeah,
you saw the mink coats.
Yeah, the kind of songs they write about, you know, diamond in the back.
Yeah, yeah.
You saw, I saw all that.
Yeah, yeah. Right.
So yeah, with that, I had those two examples to look at. Do I want to do this, or do I want to be like this? Well, I knew that being like this caused me all kind of poverty because my father was in and out. One thing I gotta give to my father is that it wasn't long before he was converted to Christ, and he literally changed his life. And I got the opportunity to know what it was like not to have a father in the home, and what it was like to have a father in the home.
Okay, so Grandpa, so you was about 6 or 7 when you came to the epiphany, like, okay, life is too hard, life is hard, and I'm supposed to have some help.
Too hard, yeah.
And you made a decision at 6 and 7 that when you have children, at that early age, you made it in your mind, I'm going to be different.
I'm going to be there for them. I'm not going to have them out there by themselves having to deal with all of these. I mean, because you're talking about fighting in the neighborhood. You're talking about survival. You're not only hunger, but you're talking about being able to get around gangs and around guys that just simply want to do you harm. Right. And so, you know, seeing when my father was out in the world doing those kind of things, I didn't have him around. I had no protection, had no guidance. When he changed his life, he ended up spending time with me, showing me how to play basketball.
Hold on, how old were you when that
8,
was
9, 10? That's basically at that juncture of maybe 6 or 7. By the time I got 8, 9, 10, he had changed and so started attending church.
So your father, my grandpa, he got baptized. Right. He got converted. Right. He started serving in the church. He changed his life around. Right. He started preaching.
Right. He became a preacher. He ended up preaching for the next 40 years before he passed.
So so you was expressing the difference. Yeah. And now you have a converted father. Right. Who's repented and changed his ways. Right. What was that experience like?
Well, you know, like I said, the difference was night and day. When he was out there doing his thing, he was gone. Yeah. And I was having to make decisions in life situations all by myself. When he came home, then I had a lot of more direction. And like I said, he taught me things. You know, basically, I can skate, I can play tennis,
ride a bike.
All of those things, somehow he found the time to spend. Now, I don't want to paint him as perfect. He was not perfect.
Right.
All right. But him being out there versus being converted was night and day.
Yeah.
And I could see the difference in a man at home versus a man in the streets. And you know, you can be in the streets in a lot of different ways. You don't have to be in the streets doing a lot of bad things. You can just be in your own world. And that young boy still has to make his own.
Sometimes we have a lot of men today, and they're in the streets in the sense of they work really, really hard. Yeah. They're always at work. Right. They're running here. They're doing this. They're doing that. And the child spends the majority of the 24 hours
by himself.
Alone.
By himself. Yeah. If he's not by himself, then what will happen is somebody out there in the street is going to fill that void.
Yeah.
Because there is a void. You know, I call it a child's birthright. A child's birthright is, hey, 23 pairs of chromosomes called me here. 23 from a man, 23 from a woman. So, you all called me here. The child's birthright, in my estimation, is I deserve to belong to somebody, and somebody deserves to belong to me. Mm-hmm. The ones that gave me the 23.
Right, right.
You know? Right. If you gave me 23 chromosomes, you're mine and I'm yours.
Right.
Okay.
Right, right.
And so I need you all around. I need my mom. I need my dad around you've given me the nature through the seed of life. Mm-hmm. Now, I need you to give me the nurture.
Yeah.
See, that's nature.
And nurture.
And nurture. You brought me here, now bring me up. But you bring me here, then leave me. Right. And that was a problem for me when I was small.
What do you say, because we have a lot of conversations today, there are some men that say, hey, I have children as long as I pay for them. Right, yeah. So I'm going to make sure they have something to eat, they have clothes, or whatever the case may be. I provide for my children. My children don't want for anything financially. So,
I have a song, and hopefully you'll be able to show that song. But in the ad libs of that song, I give what I call the formula for a good dad. And in that formula, I have these words. I say, I put that work in, I put that time in.
Yeah.
Now that part of the lyrics, it emphasizes to the father that, listen, whenever you have a child, you have signed up for a lifelong job. Mm. You've got to go to work.
Yeah.
You've got to go to work, and going to that helps that father understand that this is not, I don't just bring that child into this world. I've got a job to bring this child up, not bring him in only, bring him in and bring him up. And I put that time in, I put that work in, so that time, when you think about a baby's love language,
yeah,
the first two love languages of a baby is time and physical touch.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't spend time with that baby, and if you don't touch and interact with that baby, there's a disease called marasmus, and that's the idea of a child basically that died. You have that kind of dying in the crib.
They had like an experiment of not touching the baby, right, not just only feeding the baby.
Yeah.
Those babies end up dying because of lack of touch and interaction.
And that's a problem with those fathers. So that first part of it is, I put the time and I put the work in. The second ad lib is, I changed the diapers, I bought the wipers.
Yeah.
I changed the diapers is the idea of a father recognizing you got to get your hands dirty.
Yeah.
You got to get in there and put some skin in the game.
Would you say it matters for a father to change the diapers? It matters for a father to go get the milk. Like, why is that important? It's because a lot of men will say, hey, well, the mother will do that.
Yeah, no.
I ain't got to worry about that. That's not my job. The idea of my job.
there's oxytocin, which is that bonding chemical within us. And what happens is when a father really interacts with the baby in this way, oxytocin is actually developed within the father, that bonding relationship between the child. You know, I love to see a father with the baby laying on his chest, because that's bonding. And that's a connecting. You not only have the physical touch, but there is a psychological connection that connects between a child and the father. So the idea, I changed the diapers, I bought that lets that father know, hey, I have an investment. I'm putting myself into this a relationship. This is not something that's done vicariously. You know, I have a connection with you through your mother. No, we have a connection together, and there's a bond. So I changed the diapers, but I also bought the wipers. Yeah. And so a lot of times, a lot of fathers will spend a lot of time with the kid, but that does not absolve you of your financial responsibilities. Right. You still gotta buy the wipers. So that's that dual thing of saying, I'm not only going to invest in your person, but I'm going to make sure that I take care of your being. I'm going to provide for you. I'm going to be there for you in that regard as well. And so the first thing is, I put that work in, I put that time in, that psychological mentality that a father should have even before he has a child. You know, when I think in terms of when I first thought about having a child, I was 12 years old. You know, I was 12 years old. What is my son gonna look like?
And you was thinking about a family.
Bam, there he is, y'all. What is my child gonna be like?
And you was thinking about a family and I think a lot of fathers and a lot of mothers are unaware of some of the thoughts that enter into young boys and adolescents at 9, 10, and 11. They're already shaping their mind of how they want their family to be.
I mean, the first thing you ask a little child, what do you want to be when you grow up? Right. Well, you know, yes, they could think about fireman, they can think about lawyer, they can think about doctor, but they also think about their life. What is the life going to look like? I know at 12 years old, I was thinking about that. What kind of life do I want to have? What are my children going to be like? What do I need to do for I'm talking 12 years old. Right. And I'm thinking that. So when I was formulating this formula, the idea is I put that work in, I put the time in. I knew that I was going to have to make sacrifices, time. You you always have an excuse for not spending time.
And let me say this, and I'm gonna tell you what made a major impact on me. I can't remember, and I'm talking about, I played sports from Little League, I played middle school, high school, college. I can't remember you not being at my practice. I remember, especially even being in high school, and I have other brothers and sisters who also play sports. Not only did you make your way to them, but and supported my brothers and sisters, but I remember being in high school and the car would pull up under that tree. And you would get out. My father would sit on his hood and he would just watch. We didn't talk. I'm in practice. I would see him, he would see me. We would just nod at each other, and I nod, and I would. There were times where I wanted to quit. There were times where I wanted to, I was in my emotions and feelings, and then I would look up, and you would be right there. And so it was funny. We were, me and my siblings were talking about. In our eyes, you have perfect attendance. And so I think not realizing how impactful it is to be present. Because by you having perfect attendance, you said this about your father. You said, hey, he wasn't a perfect man. Right. He had many flaws, even after he came to Christ. Right. As we all do. But when you're there, I'm going to give you some grace, and I'm going to give you some mercy that I wouldn't give if you wasn't there. if a father's not there, then I need you to show up and be perfect financially. I need you to be perfect on the other aspects. But if you're there, if you have perfect attendance,
get a little
you get grace.
A little grace.
Right. So you may not do things like that person, or you may not do things like that, but as far as me and my siblings are concerned, that doesn't matter. Because when we have flashback, when we go back and we say, wait a minute, I don't care what y'all say, my daddy was there. And just by you being there, then it provides a level of security in a child. And here's the thing, and mama has perfect attendance.
Yes, she does.
Mama has perfect attendance.
Yes, she does.
And so she gets also a level of grace with us when it comes to certain things.
Right.
But to have mother to have perfect attendance and father to have perfect attendance, the idea is you were there. You see, it doesn't matter.
What y'all don't know is we had pillow talks on y'all.
Yeah.
See, at night, me and mama, we would talk about, you know, who's going to go to the soccer field and who's going to go to the baseball field, and and many times I would find we would be crossing one another. She would be leaving your game and I would be going to your brother's game, and she would be going to your sister's game. And
it gave the picture y'all was always there. It felt like, hey, y'all were always there, y'all were always watching. And I think what is missing in a lot of men today is that sometimes your child just want to look up and see that you're there. I don't have anything to tell you.
Yeah.
I don't. Matter of fact, I don't have anything deep to talk about. Sometimes I just want to look up. Some of y'all may not know this. Sometimes I call my father, and I'll get on the phone and I'll say, he'll say hello. He said, hey, what's going on? I said nothing. I said, I just want to call you because I can.
Yeah.
Because I understand how precious it is, especially in this day and age, and especially how short life is, that I could just pick up the phone and just call my father and he answers. And then the idea that we can talk about nothing. It doesn't have to be an emergency. It doesn't have to be like.
In fact, I'm kind of glad when it's not an emergency.
Right. We could just, but for ideas that we could just talk.
Yeah.
And our conversation is not forced. Right. And one of the reasons it's not forced is because in the beginning, you were there to answer the questions.
Yeah. Let me just say this. Yeah. I want to say this to all fathers. I want you to understand something, that when your son, even when your daughter, look in your eyes, it's like looking in a mirror. They're looking for a reflection. And the reflection they're looking for is a reflection that says to them, I'm pleasing, I'm a good boy, or I'm a good girl. And when I look, when that son or that daughter look in your eyes and see that reflection come back to them, it says to them, I must be valuable. I must be worth for my father to look at me with those eyes, for my mother to look at me with those eyes, that says to me that, hey, I must be, but let's say your son is out there and he runs a touchdown. He's looking out, the crowd is just going wild, but he's looking for his mirror. He's looking for the one that can give him a reflection of who he really feels that he is. And so he looks, and if he sees Father out there and he's smiling at him and saying good job, then now he feels like, okay, that's my image. I'm a good boy. I am worthy.
Right.
But when he doesn't see the Father out there, then he looks in the mirror and he sees no reflection. And when he sees no reflection, the reflection comes back to him that I'm not worthy.
Yeah.
Whereas there's nothing, I see nothing, therefore I must be worth nothing.
Yeah.
And that's why it's very important for I did not ever see going to your practices or going to your games, or y'all don't know he won the singing contest when he was in like the 7th or 8th grade. What was that?
No. Oh, that was 9th grade.
9th grade.
Something like that, 9th or 10th grade.
Can you believe that? Anyway, he, and to be there, it never felt like a job. It was just something that I wanted to do. And I was interested, I was concerned that if you needed to talk about something, at least I would have an idea of what you're talking about so I could give whatever guidance or direction that I possibly could give. So that was important.
When you were talking earlier, you talking about like picking us, when you was having children, that also has a lot to do with your mate selection.
Yeah,
right.
Very good.
So when you were thinking about having a family, what were some things that you were thinking about as a young man? Hey, who should I pick? What would be the best option?
Well, you see, that's one of the things that I bring out in the book as well, is that when you have seed love, you see, I loved my children, I loved y'all before you got here. You know, I had seed love. And because I had seed love, I was very concerned that whoever I got would love my children as much as I do. Mm-hmm. And so it makes, if a boy has seed love before he engages in intimacy and involve themselves in relationships that bring children into the world, if he has seed love, then what he's concerned about is making sure that his child has a safe place to come. Mm-hmm. See, a lot of abortions take place because males give their seed without care of whether or not there's going to be a safe place for that seed to come.
Yeah.
You know, so it made me more selective about someone that had as much concern about family as I did. And what that does is that causes you to not just jump in the sack with just anybody that comes along. You know, you basically are going to be looking out for your child before your child gets to this world.
What are some of the tools in the book? What are some of the tools that, like bring out one of the tools that you feel like a young man today would need to work on to be the man that he would need to be?
I have several, and basically what I say with regards to a boy becoming a man, I use an example of just the biological. A woman has eggs, and when an egg is connected with a male seed and has developmental time, then life comes. Okay, so I use that example in the sense of a boy's mind, and we'll align that with the idea of the egg. Okay, so the boy's mind is the egg, and the egg has to have that connection with the seed. Well, in biblical terms, the seed is the logos, the word. So the boy's mind has to have connection with the word, basically the moral, ethical, and spiritual principles of life. When these two come together and have developmental time, life takes place. Now, let me give you one of the principles that's found in the Word of God. You have self-control, self-regulation. You have to, you read self-control, self-regulation. I use the example of a car. Take, for instance, and now this is a principle that a young boy would be learning.
Right.
So I'm saying that in order for him to learn it, I'm saying you think about a car. If you get in a car and you're going down the road 70 miles an hour and you see that there's a roadblock up ahead, there's a roadblock, people are staying, and you're going 70 miles an hour, the first instrument that comes to your mind in that car is what? The brakes. I need to be able to stop myself. You see, if I can't stop myself, I'm going to have an accident.
Right.
I'm going to have an accident. I need to be able to stop myself. That's the same idea that a young boy has to learn. I must be able to control my natural instincts. I must be able to stop myself.
When you look at the prison population, and when you look at a lot of our young men who have regret, it was the inability to control their anger,
right?
To control their passions. They became, they flew off. They said something that they regretted saying, and it escalated.
Right.
Do you see a lot of that? Also, being a licensed counselor, do you see a lot of that in your practice, or just in our society today?
Well, the whole thing of self-control, self-regulation is one of the principles that you could look at the majority of those that are in prison fail to really absorb or to learn. Because at the time that they were, see, you have, speaking of psychology, you have the stimulus and the response. If I had a rubber hammer and I hit your knee, you would have a knee-jerk reaction. And that's generally the way that we function unless we are trained and taught how not to just simply react upon a stimulus. You get the stimulus, that's whatever gets your attention, and the first thing you want to do is react. But young boys, we teach them in this how to be able to, instead of just reacting, to be able to get more information, to investigate, to make a determination, and then make a reaction.
And I think the connection with that is, if fathers today are not present, then you can't pass these tools on.
No.
So the tools are extremely important, because if I have the tools, when I get to a hostile situation, I actually know I can go in my toolbox and I know exactly what to do. When a man finds himself where the family is in dire straits, if that man doesn't know what to do, sometimes the wife or the woman loses respect. Hey, you don't know what to do in this situation, and she ends up taking over. And he's frustrated because he has these muscles and he's tall, he's strong, but life situations and circumstances have caused him not to have proper tools.
So let me give you an idea of what we're talking about versus when we say a boy coming to man, I call it man town. Man town is not a location or a physical location. It's a state of mind. It's a mental destination. The idea is this: a little boy comes in with little boy thinking, thinks like a little boy. And until that little boy mind is connected with the moral, ethical, and spiritual principles of life, it stays little boy thinking. What is little boy thinking? I want what I want when I want it. I only want to play. I only want to have fun. I don't want anybody to tell me what to do. That's little boy thinking. I just want to have fun. I don't want to work.
I don't want responsibility.
I don't want responsibility.
So he could be a full-grown man. But his mind,
he's got that LBT. Little boy thinking. He's got that little boy mind. And so then you have the shell of a man with a little boy thinking mind.
So how does a man go from little boy thinking to the next stage?
And it can be done later on, but when the best time for those principles to be instilled is 9, 10, 11, 12. These principles need to be instilled early on. And then that individual grows up and makes wise decisions. By the time you get 20, 30 years old, you done made so many bad decisions with your little boy thinking. And so
now you're spending the next 20 years reaping the repercussions of your
decisions
mentality.
Have consequences.
You
know, and so and how many times have you heard men say, if I would have only known what I know now, I wouldn't have done what I did then.
Yeah.
You know, and so the key is catching them at a young stage where they're just formulating their mindset and the decisions have not been such that they've got to pay the consequences for them. So that mind has to be dealt with early on.
How does somebody take your principles and takes the principles in your book, and let's say for a single mother, how would they take this information and instill it with us? Like, what does that look like?
And that's why I love the fact that they have this information. They can sit down with their son and they can go chapter by chapter and talk about what this means and what that means, because I break it down I actually have about 12 principles that I've broken down. One I'd like to give you is called change, adapt, and evolve. And I use the caterpillar and the butterfly. The caterpillar, when he's first coming out, all he does is eat, sleep, and eat and sleep. Okay, no. Eat, sleep, and eat, sleep. Okay, but then it goes into the cocoon. Now, its former life was just crawling and eating, destroying gardens. Right? You don't want caterpillars all eating up all you. All right. But when it goes in the cocoon, there is a transformation, is a change. And in that darkness, the change is so dramatic that when it comes out, it can no longer be called a caterpillar. It's so changed. It was crawling. Now
it's flying.
It's in flight. It was destroying leaves. Now it's pollinating flowers. It was eating rough leaves. Now it's sipping sweet nectar. I'm just saying the change is so dramatic. That is the kind of change that a boy is supposed to have in becoming a man. Instead of asking the question, what do I want? What do I need? They're asking the question, what do others need? How can I help? That's the change of mind. And that change of mind, and that's why I have the byline under the book, How to Develop Boys to Men, for the prevention of the narcissistic personality disorder. Narcissism is, in a simple term, somebody that's stuck in little boy thinking, because it's just all about them. You know.
Do you see a lot of that today?
Oh, I see it. In fact, in some of the research, they were saying up to 10% of the United States population could be diagnosed as narcissistic. And if you're talking about 2 years ago, the population in the United States was 333 million.3, and if it's only 10%, if it's 10%, you got 33 million narcissists. And now, when you talk about narcissists, you're talking about folk that are ruthless. You're talking about those who are manipulative. They're exploitive.
They lack empathy.
They gaslight you. The whole thing about it is you were put on this earth to serve me.
Wow, You're
not important. I'm important. Therefore, I don't have to care about your feelings. I don't have to care about what you think. It's all about me. Now, just think about being in a relationship with somebody
that only thinks about themselves.
And so that's why I want to save young boys from that.
And it's difficult for a young boy to see a narcissistic man, because now that's his model. So then I'm going to take care of me. I'm going to do me. I'm going to, because he takes care of him, and he's going to, it'd be the danger of if you were growing up and only saw a pimp.
Oh my goodness.
Then you would be like, okay, well, that's how you treat women. That's how.
Now, I do want to, just for the sake of the research, there is nurture and there is nature. There's a genetic propensity for a person to lean in have a certain temperament, but it's not just genetics. We come to this world with temperament, but our environment and our training develops the character.
Yeah.
You have temperament, but the character is trained.
Yeah.
And that's what you and so you can have a bad character or a good character based upon the teaching and the training that you
and I say this, I think this is so important, because if you're a church leader, if you are if you're a preacher, elder, or deacon today, and we're looking for the future leaders,
yeah.
When a young man makes certain decisions, he becomes and can become disqualified in the church and leading in certain capacities. We're finding it harder and harder to find leaders because a lot of young men have become disqualified because of decisions that they made when they were 20, right. 25, 30. And so now they're 40, 50.
Right.
And so now they're having to deal with multiple things that are going on that may not fit the model of some of the positions that are in the church. So it's imperative to start young, like you were saying.
If we start young, embodying the principles of do unto others as you have them do unto you, and you reap what you sow, and self-control, self-regulation. I have one that I call seed, plant, fruit. That's a principle. Seed, plant, fruit. The seed is your thought.
Yeah.
Plant is doing what your thought said, and the fruit are the consequences that come from doing what you thought. So what I try to do with young boys is let them understand you have the option of determining what seed you're going to plant. When you think that thought and you do that deed, you automatically know a consequence is coming.
Right.
And so what we try to do early on is try to help that young man pick the seeds he's going to plant. And therefore he has more control over the fruit.
And I think
going to
kind of what you're saying, you know, what we plant in our mind shapes us.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
But if I don't know, I can teach a young boy how to you know, be good in society. But to be a man, there are particular tools and principles.
Right.
And sometimes, and you have a lot of parents, they're doing the best that they can with their young boys, but they don't know that this particular tool needs to be taught to your boy versus your young girl.
Right.
Right. So you may have boys and girls in the home. I realized something. You didn't raise me and my brother the same way you raised my sisters. And so there were times.
I want to say this. And I just gotta. It's just so invaluable to have a good wife.
Yeah.
Because the things that I could not see, she was able to help me to see, and as a team we were able to, because for those of you who don't know, I have 2 boys and 2 girls, so he has an older brother and 2 sisters, and so dealing with the 4 of them, sometimes I couldn't see what your mother saw.
Yeah.
And she was able to help me to be able to know how, and so, but the principles actually, because they are principles, they go across the gamut. You know, as much as young boys need to learn self-control, self-regulation, so do young girls. As much as boys need to know you're going to reap what you sow, all of these principles that are found can be applied to young ladies. But for the purposes of my book, I'm concentrating on young boys because actually, when you think about the narcissistic personality disorder, there's what is called the DSM, which is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. And in both the DSM-4 and the DSM-5, it indicates that narcissism is more prevalent among boys or males than females. Now, females probably are rapidly catching up, but that was as much as 75-25 ratio in the DSM-4, and so it's very important for us to get to the boys early.
And that's with our young boys. in a society where they're focused on themselves.
Yes.
I'm going to focus on me.
Right.
So one of the things in training with that, and you can even apply with the book, is teaching the young boys to think differently.
Right.
I know one of the things that you would say would be like, if you had, hey, watch out for your mother. Hey, and so now when I wasn't even paying attention, now I'm paying attention, is mama okay?
Right.
And you would say, hey, go with your mother. Make sure she's, well, I didn't know there was any danger.
Right.
And there may not have been any danger. And not that I was big enough, not that I was to stop it, but you would make us conscious of if we were with our siblings or our younger siblings, you would say, hey, watch, protect, make sure, hey, where is such, go hold their hand.
Right.
And so now there's this level of responsibility that has nothing to do with me, that you would constantly make us aware of our surroundings and also the women in our lives.
Right, right.
That you should never just be in the room and you don't take care of the women in the room.
In our society today, they have done such a great job at turning the wife against the husband and the husband against the wife, and the he doesn't do this and she doesn't do, and they have taken away that.
When you hear that conversation, how do you feel?
I mean,
you see a lot of stuff on social media, and men don't do that, and the women don't. How do you feel?
I just feel blessed. I feel blessed that I'm in a relationship where my wife honors me and respects me, and I honor and I respect my wife. You know, I think in terms of that relationship that exists, I think in terms of a nickel. You can't have a nickel without a heads and a tails. They're not the same. They're different, but they're one.
Yeah.
And they work together in order to pay the bill. Okay. Yeah. And so my wife brings something to the relationship, and I know what that is. And I bring something to the relationship, and my wife knows what that is. She doesn't try to make me do what she does, and I'm not trying to make her do what I do. Now, we both do a little of both, but I know what my major is, and I know what her major is. I'm going to give you an example. Little boy falls down on the playground. Yeah. Skins his knee. All right. Mama sees him. He got a little blood, you know, there's a little blood. And so she runs to him and she holds him and she says, is it all right? Basically, that oxytocin has just kind of welled up in her. That
you get a hug and a kiss.
And she's going to teach that little boy something very important. She's going to teach that little boy that he's not alone. He's going to teach that little boy that somebody loves him. He's got compassion around him. That's very important. That's a good lesson to learn. It shouldn't be looked down on. It shouldn't be despised. Now, daddy sees same little boy fall down, skin his knee. Daddy becomes one with that little boy. We're a team, and we've got to fight the enemy. You know what the enemy is? Pain.
Come on.
Pain is trying to make you a slave, trying to put you in bondage. We're not gonna let pain win.
Sweetness, get that sweetness out.
Pain. So his testosterone is rising. We gonna together we gonna win this battle. Throw some dirt on it. You know, get up. Hey, it's gonna be all right. Go. Yeah. And so what we're basically saying is that the Father brings something. He brings that resilience. That's where courage comes from. When you learn that pain don't have to take over. I can stand even under pain. I can stand under trial and tribulation. I don't have to just give in and run home. But I still need to know somebody love me. Yeah. I still need to know that I'm not out here all by myself all the time.
So I think with a father, especially it's beneficial to have a father and a mother where the father and the mother both add to the child these tools. Yes. And even if that's not your situation, through many different circumstances, the principles are the same, whether it's from a man or from a woman. Right. You still need to instill those principles. So it just makes it difficult if you if you are a single parent, it makes it difficult, but it's still possible as long as you're aware of the tools, which means after hugging and kissing the child, you gotta
help it to deal with the pain.
You gotta say, okay, now you gotta get up. I love you, I kiss, but you can't hug, and that makes it difficult because you can't hug and kiss too long.
Right.
Or if you are a father or you're a single parent,
you can't be so hard. That was the problem with Eddie Kane Jr.
Come on now. they just think they know. They just think they don't know.
Eddie Kane. See, the idea is that when you know your roles and you know what you bring into, then basically now I'm not always the one that's saying get up and I may show a little bit, and then she may come up and say, okay, now it's time for y'all to go.
So it's not, so you're saying it's not gender specific?
It's not exclusive.
Yeah.
But there's going to be a major. Now, let me tell you something. When it comes down to a running back, a running back runs the ball. But sometimes a running back blocks.
Sometimes he catches.
Sometimes he can. So even though he has a major role,
he can do other things.
He can do other things. And so that's the same thing with a father. You know, you have a major role, but sometimes you can wash the dishes. Sometimes you can, make up the bed.
Sometimes you can hug your children. Sometimes you can read to them.
You didn't want to stay on the bed too long.
You gotta move on.
Okay.
You gotta move on.
So the idea is that when the two understand, now let me address the single parent. So when you know what the child has to learn, when you know that the child has to move from little boy thinking to man-town thinking, and you know that the only way the little boy is going to be able to do that is that his mind come in contact with the principles of life, that his mind come in contact with ethics and morals, and may need even a role model or example. Now as a single parent, now what you're doing is you're putting your son in presence of positive people that can give them some of those elements. Sometimes you can even use documentaries that point out certain character traits of certain
You have
men.
to bring in those other resources.
You've got to be innovative. Because you're in a situation. You're in a situation where you've got to figure out, how do I get what I need even though it's not immediately supplied in my situation?
Gotcha.
And that's why I really recommend my book, because a lot of the things that young boy needs to know is going to be in there, and all you have to do is be there and dialogue with him, and he can get those principles and make the decisions that will allow him to make wise, fruitful, and responsible decisions. If a young boy has these principles, they won't be a beater, they won't be a thief. In other words, basically these principles will mold their worldview and their image of who they are. It will cause them to say, I don't lie. I'm not a liar.
And stand on that principle.
Yeah, and it's got nothing to do with the woman. It's got nothing to do with the job. That's just who I am. I am not.
He's aware of the principle that rules him.
Yeah,
and I think it's very important too, because we're all ruled by principles. And sometimes we've lost principles. Sometimes we've compromised on our principles. And I think it's imperative, and I think what you're saying is at a very young age, you got to instill these principles early, because to try to do them later in life is an uphill battle.
I call it wet cement. See, you can have a form, and if you see the cement truck, he pulls that cement, whatever that form is, that concrete will take that form, but only for a while. In a minute now, you can make another form if you want to, and that concrete ain't going anywhere. So the idea is you have young boys in that wet cement. If you can create the right form, they'll feel it. And that's who they will be. And the world will be blessed because of it.
Amen.
I have one thing that I'd like to say to all the fathers. I'm going to do this poem, and you tell them how many years I've been doing this for them, okay?
Okay.
To all the fathers that are out there, I want you to hear this word. This is a poem. A careful man I want to be. A little fellow follows me. I do not dare to go astray, for fear he'll go the self-same way. I cannot once escape his eyes. Whatever he sees me do, he tries.
Yeah.
The base in me he must not see. That little fellow that follows me.
Yeah.
I must remember as I go through summer sun and winter snow that I am building for the world to be that little fellow
that follows
me.
My father taught me that poem when I was in elementary. Here I am a grown man, and I still remember the importance of a model and having that model. Thank you for sharing that. And I want to give the floor. Is there anything else that you would like to share with the people that you may feel like be a blessing, and the impact that you feel like the book will have on their lives?
Even though the book is written for boys, if boys can grow up to be men, then women won't be beaten. They won't be misused. They won't be cheated on. If boys take on the principles that are found in this book, then they'll be good fathers. They'll be good citizens. And I believe that the world can be a better place. I appreciate all of those that will be considering to get the book, and I hope and pray that it will be a blessing to you.
We want to thank you for tuning in to Gethsemane. Hey, listen, we want you to hit that like button. We want you to hit that share button. Let's get this message out. Also, we want you to hit the link below where you can be able to get a copy of a book. And it's all on our major platforms where you can be able to receive. And we want you to be blessed by it. We want to thank you so much for tuning in. Also, we're thankful for all of our supporters. Thank you for supporting this ministry. We want you to hit that link also below where you can be able to donate to Gethsemane and this platform as we strive to get the gospel out to all four corners of the world. We definitely pray that this was a blessing. Listen, we are here to heal, help, and restore. Be blessed.
Thank you.
We are here to heal, help, and restore.